Good evening, Will Goldstein here at www.thekingscourt.com. Today's video is entitled, What is the Style of Music at the King's Court? So I've heard people say to me after hearing my music, what kind of style is that? Anyway, can't figure it out, and for good reason. I have a very unique style. I didn't really, I do have people that in the past, have been very influential in their writing, but sometimes my music has been related to them. But mostly I try to do my own thing. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about lyrics, but mostly this is about the music. So in terms of in my music, the lyrics always come first. So generally they come first, meaning, from the lyrics comes the melody, and it's not the other way around. I don't write the melody first usually, and then write the words. I write the words first, so the lyrics, and then that dictates even the form of the music. So the lyrics are generating the melody and the form, and then sometimes if I want to have one of the melodies in a verse or a chorus, and I want to add more text, then I am writing words to the melody, the reverse, but it usually always starts the other way around. So all the music is based on either scriptural or at least spiritual meanings. So that can be basically from the Bible, but it's not just the Bible, because I've come up with a lot of different lyrics. So it could be spiritual in the sense, so it's Bible, so teaching, preaching, but it might be based on biblical philosophy, for example. There's a lot in the field of the philosophy of religion. So people are, they're trying to figure out, there's interpretation of the Bible, for example. And so not everybody can agree, even though the Bible says what it says, not everybody can agree. So I've read a lot about in the philosophy of religions. So, but that also, I've also done a lot of reading, for example, in philosophy in general, a lot of books in philosophy in general. So Plato, Aristotle, even people like great scholars, Jewish scholars like Maimonides, Rambam, they call him. But these are all people who delve into the basic questions of humanity. Is there a God? Can we prove God? Basically one of the fundamental questions that the ancients were always dealing with is this universe is here, so has it always been here? Or, I don't want to get too sidetracked on this, but has it always been here, or is it ex creatio ex nihilo? I don't speak Latin anymore, but out of nothing, created out of nothing, which the Jews say that. But for example, Aristotle, believed that the universe was always here. So, getting sidetracked. But anyway, so that's a little bit. So I read all these scholars and his teachings, and ethics is a huge part of it. To understand, the nature of right and wrong and basic ethics. So aside from that, getting to the music, because the music is generated from the text, different texts emote different sorts of melodies and different sorts of rhythms and styles. For example, some text is just given towards it's got to be a blues song, or it maybe is more of like a Latin sort of feel even, or a jazz feel or something like that. So the lyrics are generating that style because I'm hearing it in my head. I'm sitting in a coffee shop and I wrote all these songs. There was no instrument. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking the melody in my head. I have the ability to, whatever goes in my head, I can write it down on a piece of paper. or on some sheet music. So that's how I did it. I just basically heard the melodies in my head. So they sort of floated down to me. I can create melodies instantaneously. So I just sat there and they would generate. And that was just basically a basic melody. As the song gets worked on and viewed years later, I often change. Sometimes I keep a lot of that, and sometimes a lot of that is gone, and I change the melody and improve the melody, or there's parts of it are left, or whatever. So it's generating all these different styles, and sometimes I write. Some songs are very basic, so I might be almost like a folk song or something like that. Other songs are choral, and I like writing choral music. I plan on doing more choral music. I already talked about blues and jazz, but let's talk about the canons. The canons basically, this is what makes it really unique, because canons and things like that go way back into medieval times, medieval Renaissance, and back hundreds of years, probably farther than that. And so those canons that I came up are really useful with very short, just a really simple short text, scriptural text, and it allows you to really make a chant out of it, and then have counter melodies, and it gets choral effect. And like for example, the canon, everybody's singing the melody, but they're starting at a different time. Some people call them rounds. But then there's counter melodies and the verse canons, and these are all things that I devise. But basically, they have, they're all pretty much I designed them, but the basic impetus behind that was more in ancient music. And it's interesting because you might have this ancient form, like with canons, but it might even be with jazz chords, which you can see it's just completely a different world. So it creates a very unique style, probably that no one else, at least that I know of, is doing. So it's very unique in that sense. As far as the instrumentation goes, I play a lot of instruments, so I'm multi-instrumental. So basically, I'm quite good at the piano, at just reading piano, classical jazz. I played for years in Sonoma County, and I was in the wine industry playing secular music. I was hired as jazz pianist, and I was hired playing the violin and guitar. And I had a duo that I was in, and I was playing a lot of the big wineries all over Sonoma and Lake County and Napa County, and down in Marin in California. I made a fair amount of money doing that. I was hired by a lot of wineries. I've even played. Opus One hired me to play for them. Opus One is the biggest winery in the West Coast, maybe in the United States. They hired me to play. Not Christian music. I was playing secular music. But I play guitar as well as the keyboards. I play violin, fiddle, mandolin. I play other things. I can play recorders, penny whistles. I used to play flute for many years. I was a very good flute player. I played electric bass. I recorded with these and banjo and things like that. And those are some of the things that I actually played, and I sing a lot of these vocals, and even sometimes the harmony vocals. I've had other people do some of the singing as well. As far as the orchestral, I do have a recording studio here, so I can do my own arrangements with that. So I might use horns that I don't really play myself, but I might want a trumpet in there or a saxophone or something like that, or all kinds of instruments that you can hear in my recordings. So it could be woodwinds, could be percussions, could be drums. I said electric bass or stand-up bass, ethnic instruments with mallets. Those are all things that I put in my recordings, but those are from the software instruments. So I'm writing the pieces, and then the software is playing those instruments. But that gives you a basic idea. There's a lot of swing tunes a huge amount of swing tunes because some of the text generates that. And so I've got a lot of all kinds of styles of music, but there can be a lot of that, and it does require, if it's jazz, especially jazz chords, and based on jazz chromatic harmony, that can be difficult. So that brings us to another aspect of this recording, is the difficulty of some of the music. So granted, when I first started writing the music, it was all, I made some decisions from day one, and I pretty much held to those decisions. My primary motive is to put that scripture to music. If it generates difficult music, it generates difficult music. If it's something simple, then it's simple. It is what it is. So because of that, some of the melodies, might require a pretty good singer, and definitely some of the jazz harmony can be difficult. There is, in the back of most all my books, there's a interval chart or a theory chart in the back, usually right near the very end, and it goes through, and if you know how to read that chart, it can go through and show you basically how those chords can be constructed from that interval chart. And that can be helpful, so when you see a chord symbol, you can actually go and look at that chart if you know how to read it, and you can figure out exactly what notes are in that chord. Then, of course, you have to deal with the fact of, do you play your instrument well enough so that you're familiar with all those chords. As I said, I was a secular musician I played Gershwin, all that, so I'm very familiar with those chords. So, that's just a part of being an experienced musician. So some of the songs are simple, and some of the songs are a little harder, and some of the songs can at times be very complex. But they all, at the end of the day, express what's behind the lyrical content of the music, and I always put that. So when I started, I also wanted to use. I thought to myself, well, I want this kind of be like God's music. It's thekingschord.com, and the King's Chord is certainly not me. It's all for the King, and that's Jesus Christ. So in that sense, that's basically what I had to convey today, and I hope that you got some more insights into all about the music at the King's Court. All right, bye-bye.